Hello, everybody, and welcome to Climate Diet's podcast, Climate and Cuisine. My name is Jane DeMarines, and I'm the Executive Director of Climate Diet. And with me today, I'm so excited to have Gwyn Whittaker. She is an entrepreneur and leader in the plant-based space. She operates, many of you may know this, I've been there to the GreenFare restaurant in Vienna, or is that Herndon? I'm not sure which.
Yeah.
Herndon.
Uh-huh.
Okay, excellent restaurant. I was just there about 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, and have been there before. But she also significantly has started a nonprofit in 2015 called GreenFare Health and Wellness, and she has done some amazing work besides running a fantastic restaurant. So, Gwyn, welcome.
Thanks, Jane. I'm thrilled to be on your show, and I'm happy to be sharing some of the things that we're working on.
So, Gwyn, as I mentioned, the nonprofit is just fairly groundbreaking. I watched some of the videos of people that you've worked with, and I know you're focused on both education and really changing people's lives. So, do you want to talk just a little bit about how you got started in that space of, but both the educational side, but I've been a part of some of the Veg Fest that you started in the Vienna area in Fairfax, and I don't know how many different places in Virginia, but I was at the one in Herndon, I guess about a year ago. So I know you have that, which is, I think the Veg Fest are great, but the nonprofit is huge. So if you could just talk about those two and that transition and how you're operating that program today, the health related one.
Sure. So there's sort of an overlay between the two entities. I got started in 2015 with a project that I worked with Colin Campbell when his son was filming the Plant Pure Nation film. And if you see that, they do these 10-day jumpstart programs with farmers down in North Carolina, and they have dramatic health implications. So I invited Colin and Nelson to support me doing one of these in Reston. This is before the restaurant and when I was really just getting started. And I taught 45 people into doing a 10-day dietary intervention. Nelson Campbell brought his frozen plant-based meals up from North Carolina. Colin Campbell came down and I showed forks over knives, and Colin answered questions. We had a nurse that did blood testing, measured blood pressure and weight. And then people went home with meals and then came back 10 days later and we measured again. And it was so impactful for people. Just in that 10-day program, 20% drop in cholesterol, blood pressure normalized across the board, and an average of
just in 10 days.
Right.
Amazing.
And 5.5 pound weight loss. So the only thing that changed was diet. We didn't ask people to exercise or talk about sleep or stress or anything else. And so I started getting letters from people saying that 10-day thing changed my life. I got like 3 or 4 letters. And I had a career in the intelligence community for 35 years before I started this. I ran a company in the space, and there's cities still on the map because of work that was done there. Never got a thank you note. So, it was pretty impactful to me to recognize that there was a need for this. And so I conceptualized what I call an educational cafe. And I met a fellow, Pericles Silva, about the same time, who was working at Whole Foods, and he'd been doing this for decades as a sports nutritionist. I said, I'm thinking about opening a restaurant and delivering a program at the restaurant to help people make a dietary intervention, not just to feed a meal, but to change a life. And he looked at me like I was crazy, and neither one of us had experience in the restaurant space. But I had a friend who found a built-out restaurant, and I signed a lease in September that year. We opened in November, And we started delivering a Kickstart program in December of 2015. And so we're in our 10th year now. We've had over 2,000 people go through this program with
Wow.
pretty famous people going through. Daryl Green, the football player, has gone through twice. Maybe 5 dozen or plus doctors, some pretty well known, the head of the George Washington University Medical School. And we've watched almost all chronic illnesses reverse and quickly. And so about that time, I
So I have a quick question. Did you do this prior to Mayor Adams instituting it in his six public hospitals in New York City? I guess he's really only done that in the last, maybe, I'm not sure how long he's been mayor, but
that's the last few years. I'm actually going to be working with Leanna Reisner starting in January on her nonprofit. So I'm joining. The thought is I've been invited to join their board in the Plant Powered Metro group. So hopefully, I'll be able to help them with some of the things that we've been able to institute here. So we had one Kickstarter that wanted to give us a fairly large amount of money that was, and so that was what spurred me to start the nonprofit, the GreenFare.org, which is basically a donation platform. But we've when I got that donation from him, we did a organized project during the pandemic for African American people that had diabetes, and they were one of the highest mortality during the pandemic. African Americans with that comorbidity. So that focused approach, we basically paid for classes, food, biometrics, and then we did a video about it. It was pretty impactful 15-minute video of, what people expected before and then what their experience was after and what their impacts.
I saw this video and it is amazing. The results, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. If you go, I had registered at the university, Master's of Science program a couple of years ago, and there the only way to reverse type 2 diabetes is through gastric bypass. That was the only paid for by Medicare process that was known to reverse diabetes.
This is so sad.
Just slow things down. And so what we were able to show within 30 days was that most people could get off medication, during that time. And our Kickstart, every month at greenfare.com, we run a 21-day Kickstart with classes and food. The program we're doing this month, we've got a guy that started with full-on insulin, having to measure it after every meal. And in the first week, he reduced his insulin by half, which is pretty dramatic. So your body starts to heal itself right away. And that's kind of that's a compelling thing about it. It's when you take things out that cause harm, then health returns. And so that's the most empowering thing that, I love to share with people.
One thing I'd like to ask you, and I usually ask most of my guests, how did you become plant-based? What is your origin story?
I consider myself to be vegan. I started in my probably early teens when I associated what I was eating with the animal in the field that I loved. And so I stopped cows first. I grew up at the beach, so I was more seafood. I never liked chicken. So that was like really easy to take out. And I think probably 15 years ago, I took out seafood after reading a book called The Ethics of Food Choices, just about the industry. And I think it was like 90% of what's pulled in these, 6-foot dragnet pythons.
Seaspiracy captures that.
Yeah, so it's really staggering how much life we take out to put a few pieces of fish on our plate. So I remember reading this book for just 4 or 5 pages, and I closed the book, and it's like I'm done with this industry. And so that was before the GreenFare concept, and then I think GreenFare, I learned more about the benefits of organic food. There's actually essential amino acids that get taken out when you're eating conventionally grown food. And the whole thing about gluten intolerance is because of what gets sprayed on the food, not not the gluten, which is, essential protein that we've had in our diet for thousands of years. So, and then probably alcohol. And I think there's pretty a wide consensus now among people that have looked at the data that there's really no safe amount of alcohol, similar to smoking. It's doctors used to say, just cut back, don't quit. And, I think doctors had been giving that advice, and now the ones that have really looked at the data, there's really not a safe amount of alcohol. So that was sort of impactful in opening a restaurant, because we've never been able to be profitable. So it's more, I sort of run two nonprofits. One by default is a IRS 501c3, and the other as needs to write checks every month to keep it going. But it's my platform that there's not a day that goes by when I'm in there that somebody doesn't tell me how we've transformed our life. And the team that I have at GreenFare is fantastic. I go in to teach classes, but Pericles Silva really runs the ship. Jen Graydon is our full-time baker, and we just have a crew of dedicated people that have been with us. Most have been there like 6 or 7 years. So it's, if you know the restaurant business, it usually turns over like 100% every year. So we've been very fortunate to, with our customers, giving us support to, help keep them at living wages.
Well, it's a great restaurant. Let's talk a little bit about the future. I'm just wondering, how you see yourself in the future, and how do you see the vegan and plant-based community growing? Europe has, I think Amsterdam has a goal, and this may be vegetarians and not vegans, of being, I believe it's 50% vegan or vegetarian by the year 2050. And they're already at something like 28%, I think, at this time. Again, it's a city, so it's not the whole state. But it's a huge, it's a huge statement. And other countries, certainly in Europe, are way ahead of the United States. I mean, we have maybe 8% of the country is vegetarian, and the vegans, I think, are probably 1% or something like that. Would you agree that's our data? Something?
Yeah, I think if you look at sort of epicenters, I think it's like London and, Germany, England, Germany, definitely Europe is ahead of us. But I guess I see like it's a dog leg that we're in right now, where you see nonlinear growth of something that's been, I think from a vegan perspective, 2 to 3% of the population, and not changing much over the years. But I see a lot of movement happening because of rising healthcare costs, aging baby boomers who want to, fight to keep their health. And so they're maybe not as willing to go under the gun for treatments or prescriptions that, they want to control their health. The environmental aspects, with climate change, I think more people are, and you have, I would say, pauses where you see things slow, but I would compare it to the electric cars. Tesla came on board. I had one of the first cars that was 2013 when they started production. And I look at within 10 years, it's changed everything. There's an electric airplane manufacturer in Dulles. It's valued at, billions of dollars right now. They haven't flown yet, but a lot of money, whether it's tractor trailers, pickup trucks, electric tractors, everybody has really, and it just, I think you see like spits and spurts of who's the adopters are. If you go to Amsterdam now, all of their taxis are Tesla taxis. You step into electric cars. So they made a big, commitment in that space. And China, primarily because of the environmental pollution of fossil fuels, put these, electric power chargers everywhere. Food, I think, is easier to change. The food industry can change in a heartbeat. And so there's so much money going into that space. I think, right? Eric Schmidt from Google in 2019 said that plant-based technology was the #1 tech trend in the market. So in technology, and personally, I don't think plant-based technology is good in food. I think ways to expedite shipping, packaging, all of those distribution, all of those things are great from a food standpoint, but not changing from whole plant food, organic whole plant food. So that's kind of been the path that I've been on.
Let's talk about the younger generation. I mean, I have 3 daughters and 2 are vegan. They're actually not college age anymore, although one is working on a master's. But the younger generation, and I'm talking more like high school and going into college, seem to me the biggest group of new vegans. And I haven't seen data on this. It's more what I'm hearing, reading, but again, I haven't really seen any surveys of it. Do you have any feeling about that yourself? I mean, I think they see the planet they're inheriting and understand that it is a way to help cure the ills of climate change, because so much of at least methane is coming from cattle and livestock. The food that they need is massive. The water resources that cattle need are massive. And so it's easy to understand, at least with beef, what a huge impact it has on our climate. But what is your own opinion? And if maybe you've seen some data on that age group.
I share your own sense. I think I lead a large group of seniors in the intelligence community. It's primarily male. And whenever I talk with them about plant-based nutrition, they always have a grandson or granddaughter or a son or daughter that's plant-based or, vegan. And so there's a fellow named David Grimm. He wrote a book called Citizen Canine. And he talks about how the baby boomer generation and myself grew up with a dog that lived outside of our house and a dog in a dog house out in the backyard. And that today's families, the dogs and cats live inside, they eat the same food, they get the same medical treatment, they get clothing and companionship, and they're viewed as part of the family. And so I think kids, this generation, they recognize that a dog is not just a dog. A dog is a person, it's got a personality. This dog is different than this dog. And so that feeling of empathy, I think, is a lot easier for kids when they say, sometimes it's disguised like pork is not a pig, but chicken is chicken. If you have a chicken, that's what you're eating is a chicken. Beef is cows gets changed to beef. So there's like some wording that I think when you start saying, are you eating a cow instead of are you having beef, it just starts to feel differently. And kids are smart. So they, I think in greater numbers are moving quicker into that movement as they get a glimpse of that education. And a lot of times we'll see them bring their parents along. I'll have a couple parents and a child in the restaurant, and they'll say, our daughter's vegan and we wanted to try your restaurant. And I'm like, yeah, you've got a very smart daughter, right? Not only will it be good for her and her the animal welfare, but it's also usually brings huge benefits to the parents, from an aging without pain and medication perspective.
Well, that actually is my own origin story. My daughter bought a book for my husband and I called The China Study, and we read that and became vegetarians and then later vegans. But we've been vegetarian or vegan for about 24 years now. But she was the one that really
planting seeds.
changed our life.
Yeah, that's awesome. How old was she, Jane, when she did that?
You know, she might have been maybe something like 29 or 27,
Okay.
somewhere in that age. She went to college in Florida, and so a lot of people into health and working out, and I yeah, I don't know. She knew about the book.
Mhm. So I guess about a month ago, I visited a retirement community and I gave a lecture there. And I always make it, in context of where you are now and what you're going to experience if you make this change. And it's a feeling of sort of hope and empowerment for people that they don't have to take medication, if they make some lifestyle changes. And so I had this one encounter, and then I got a call the next day that they were going to bring a bus out and bring people to the cafe, and they had an engagement with their chef at the facility. And then another friend sent me, he just started in a retirement community where they were advertising, health starts here at the retirement community, and plant-based meals was a poster at the front of the cafeteria and the reasons for doing that. And so I shared that with this one. And it's like, if you get competition where, you're providing that for people going in, it inspires communities to change together. And we had the group that came out, I think, last week. And for the most part, I think 70% of the people wanted to be there. The other 30% were tag-alongs. They hadn't heard my talk. Um, but they love the food. And so it's like, if you like what you're eating, then it starts to feel like it's possible. And especially if you know that it's supportive of your health. And I think that's always why I sort of draw a line about not calling it vegan, because there's so many vegan products now that don't give you that health improvement. And so that's sort of, been at the cafe where we're doing this organic, and then salt without added salt, oil, and sugar. And it's a more difficult way to learn to cook. And that's the GreenFare program, the 21-day kickstart that we do, helps people to learn how to make these foods on your own in a quick and healthful way.
Well, my daughter, the one that gave us the book that's in Tampa, she is a chef for a lot of restaurants and does cooking shows. She's not so much a chef, but she goes in and acts as a consultant. And if they don't have any plant-based recipes, she'll bring them recipes and teach them how to incorporate those into the kind of cuisine that they're offering. So it's really exciting. We went with her to a restaurant where she brought vegan meatballs, and they were so delicious. So she's doing a lot of education there. And I was going to mention something that I'm doing that's new. We haven't launched it yet, but we're looking at launching it just at the beginning of the year, is kind of related to New Year's resolution, but a certification program called Earthwise Eater. And people will take a little quiz, and it'll be on our website, and uh, see what they know about eating vegan, eating plant-based, and the relationship with the environment, and also the opposite, how meat is not helping climate change. And then we have a pledge if they asking them to not eat meat 1 day a week. So it's kind of an effort to create more community among people that are going plant-based, and also letting them know just 1 day a week of not eating meat is a great start to, cutting down the number of cows that are going to be killed across the world, and the devastation that is to our climate, and deforestation that's going on. So anyway, I'll send you some information on that if you're interested. But we think it'd be a way to kind of create a little more identity, and maybe particularly among young people with the quiz. We use quizzes at the Veg Fest that we did in that you were the sponsor of in Herndon last year. And people seem to love these little quizzes, to test their IQ. So anyway, Do you have any, before we wrap it up, do you have any things you would like to add that we've missed in this conversation? We've kind of been over a lot, and I'm so impressed with the huge, impactful work that you've done with people changing their lives.
Yeah, I think the 21-day kickstart that we do at GreenFare is the most impactful thing that people can do in their lives because it gives them an opportunity to make a very significant change while they're in their environment. You know, it's one thing to go away and go through a program somewhere else and then go back home and you're dealing with your own pantry and your own way of cooking and people in your house. But people that transition in our community, it tends to stick with, and people keep coming back to reinforce it and, you know, go through the community there. So we're doing two programs in January. One is on a Saturday, my favorite one, 9 to 11. It's like people wake up, they're fresh, they go home with 7 meals. So they've got, you know, their pantry stocked for the next couple of days. And then we have a program on Tuesday, and it's January, I think it's January 13th. It's the first, January 14th. It's the first, second Tuesday of the new year. And that's 6 to 8 at GreenFare. And so it provides people the opportunity, I think, to learn about the aspects of lifestyle medicine, you know, not just what you're eating, but exercise, sleep, stress management. We do intermittent fasting, benefits of organic, you know, and so it's putting all of the lifestyle things together. And it's not just one thing, you know, it's not just taking out animal products that can have dramatic impacts. It's really transitioning, you know, as Colin Campbell said, to a whole food plant-based diet where you're taking into account the impacts of sleep and exercise, you know, from a healing perspective. We talk about food addiction, we talk about label reading, and then we have a class on meal preparation. So when people finish the class, they're confident that they know not only what to do, but why they're doing it. And so that's, you know, that's to me the sort of the centerpiece of everything I'm doing right now. I've got a lot of different projects that I'm working, and it's always, you know, try to meet people where they are and inspire them to make things better from a health. And if they love animals or they care about the environment, you know, it's whatever, you know, if they're an athlete, whatever their thing is, it's like, how do you make changes that are going to give you a sustainable path forward? So that's the, you know, that's a fun thing that I do.
Well, I'm thrilled to hear about your program in more detail, and I've been entertained certainly at your restaurant and nourished by the great food at GreenFare. And if you want to send me a list of any of those dates, I can see if they can be added to the podcast so people also become more aware of them in this area at least. So Gwyn, thank you so much for being our guest today, and I hope you'll come back another time and talk about this again.
Sounds good, Jane. I really appreciate you having me on, and good luck to you with
Thank,
this podcast.
thanks so much. And thank you everybody for being with us today at Climate Diets, Climate and Cuisine.